He had a warrant for his arrest. I go from that to the next person, and they're saying, I think he's a window peeper. Oh my gosh, what did I just get myself into?
Welcome to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association, providing benefits and services to real estate investors and rental property owners for over 45 years. With your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group.
Hello and welcome to episode 28. Today, I'm sitting down to talk with Kim Post, and Kim is the owner of Post & Associates Appraisals, as well as Next Door Properties, LLC. And Kim owns multifamilies and single-family properties. She likes to buy her properties on land contract using seller financing. And we're going to talk about how she's found some multifamily deals off market, as well as some multifamily she just recently purchased and is in the process of improving and managing. And boy, is she dealing with some difficulties with these. So I think you're going to find what she has to say very, very interesting. Kim, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
You're welcome.
Your experience in real estate goes back 30 years.
Yeah, more than 30.
We'll talk about that. Tell me how you began.
People that I were friends with or my parents were friends owned rental property. And I was a school teacher at the time and wanted to do something more. In fact, I had just, the Headley Amendment went through, so I got laid off and I opened a daycare center and was doing that, but really wanted to do something more than that. So I decided to buy rental property. And I bought my first rental property on Tulip Street in Granville, but on a land contract, and rented that for several years and managed it ourselves. It was a whole different world back then. Managing was much, I would say, much easier than what it is today, and never had a problem. And then we also lived in a house. We bought our first house when we were married, which was a tiny house in Cutlerville. And we moved, we found an old farmhouse to remodel out in Caledonia. And so we rented our little house in Cutlerville too for a couple of years. And then we decided to sell that to do bigger and better things. Actually, we sold both properties then. And we remodeled a farmhouse and we did property development. I owned a daycare center and built new spec houses and developed some property. So I've done just a wide variety of real estate ventures. I was a builder, and now I'm in this whole building process. That's kind of how I got into my appraisal business.
Well, look, before you get into your appraisal business, let's go back to you being a school teacher, and you got laid off.
I got laid off.
Basically,
I got cut to part-time, and I didn't really want to take a part-time job. It was...
Yeah, and so how did you even know about real estate? Was it because you had friends and family who were into it?
My family had friends that... he was a builder, and they always had owned rental property. Like they had remodeled a church into a apartments and just the little things. And then there were other family friends that owned rental property. And I just thought, how wise at that point in time. And I didn't even really know the numbers or anything. It just was attractive to me. I've always been a house person. I was a kid playing with Legos when Legos were not for girls. Could just recall I'd walk into a house and I was always attracted to houses from a young age. Can remember house plans and stuff. So for whatever reason, that has always been my thing, just houses and how people arrange their houses. And then it
was part of your psyche then.
It was part of my psyche. And I knew being a school teacher was not...
You had the entrepreneurial spirit, and school teaching did not quite fit into that.
It did not.
You said that being managing properties back then was a lot easier. What about buying the properties? I know you got a land contract on your first property. How did you go about that? And what were the differences in finding properties back then, over 30 years ago, compared to the market you see today?
Well, my mother-in-law at the time worked for Grover Realtor. And she had a friend who was into rental properties. And so she hooked me up with him. And back in those days, he would bring me a whole pile of listing cards. And you would go by hand and look through, and he'd say, you know what, something's coming up. This Older couple is going into a nursing home, their house, it's going to be perfect for you. That's how I got that house. And he helped me with my numbers and just told me what I had to do. But it was basically you filled out an application. We didn't run credit. I would call on their references. But there was no computers.
This is when you were leasing to tenants.
Yep, when I was renting. But to back up, I guess, to the purchasing of it, I bought it on a land contract. In fact, most of the deals I've ever done have been land contracts. Even our personal stuff, a lot of it has been. And I can't even remember, it was a very little down, but the house I don't think was $10,000. I don't even think it cost that much at that point in time. And it didn't need a lot of work. We had a little bit of painting and cleaning up. We had to re-roof the garage. My husband and I did that ourselves, and then we right away rented it and only had a couple of turnovers. I ended up, the second time I rented it to what is now Section 8, and she lived there for quite a long time. And I collected the rent in person. That's what this guy had told me, this realtor. You'd go down every month, and if they don't pay you, then give them a notice to quit. Always got paid. Always, it was like my accountant said when he did my taxes, oh my gosh, I wish I'd have done what you're doing when I was your age, because it was a great tax write-off. We were building equity. It was a good thing. You mentioned land contracts and buying on land contracts. For those who have never done it or aren't sure what you mean by that, can you explain what a land contract is and why it benefited you and the seller? Well, the land contract is basically the seller is holding the mortgage. So you buy the property, come to an agreed upon price and an agreed upon down payment. You give them the down payment. It was a 3-page land contract. I still have it. The mortgage was like a 3-page, very simple land contract. The people who lived in the property had lived in there for 60 years. So I did not pull any title policy at that point. We just signed it over, and we signed the deal, and I took possession that day. And my husband was in it reluctantly. He wasn't quite as gung-ho as I was about this, but he went along and helped with the repairs and stuff. But then I pretty much took over management. And this realtor, his name was Dar Sleeper, and he was just very helpful. If I had any questions, I called him and asked him. And he even told me, I joined the RPOA back then, the RPOA was just I just remember it as kind of a closet office. I can't even remember where it was. When I joined it, and I got forms from them, and then that's about all that I know of that they did. I went to a couple maybe dinner meetings where they had stuff, but it wasn't near like it is now.
The RPOA being the Rental Property Owners Association, which is the group that now sponsors this podcast. So you bought your first rental property on a land contract, and that's how you buy all your rental properties then, or most of them anyway.
At this point, I bought everything through.
Now, I know that's something that I'd like to do. I've never done a land contract, and I know that is a good way to go because you can bypass the banks and get much simpler and sometimes better terms. How do you find these land contract deals, and how do you convince the sellers to sell them to you on land contract?
Well, it's interesting. Networking is a big, somebody knows of somebody who knows of somebody. I get calls a lot because I'm an appraiser, and I will just take phone calls. Like if somebody has a quick question, the girls at the RPOA office will say, you can call Kim, she'll answer your question about value. Or if you have an appraisal that you don't understand that a bank sent you, I'm happy to go over that and help people. And in the same, I call people if I have questions. So I think that's one great thing about the RPOA that I have. It's one of my most valuable, one of the most valuable things of RPOA is the fact that we have a network of support. And I don't know if everybody realizes what a strong network that is. But And that's how I found all the land contract deals. I just will be talking with somebody and I'm looking for something, or they'll say, hey, you know what, I ran across this property. Would you be interested in it? The people don't want to sell it conventionally, because for the seller is they don't have all their taxes at one time. They're only paying taxes on what they're paid at the time.
So it's a good way to stagger your the capital gains.
The capital gains, they're not getting hit all at once. Or if they want a consistent income that is a consistent return on their investment, it's a plus for them. And sometimes there's an emotional attachment. It's hard for them to let go. But for the most part, they want the income, but they don't want the headaches. And they don't want the capital gains taxes. So I have people seeking out, we'll call and a lot of times I'll refer them to somebody. There are people at RPOA that might be interested, and I'll say, I'll spread the word that your house is for sale.
Mm-hmm. These are typically off-market type deals.
Off-market type
and
deals.
You're coming across them just through conversation. People are calling you about appraisals.
Or I'll run into them at breakfast, or I'll run them at the REI. RPOA has a Friday morning breakfast every week at Cheshire Grill, and there's people in and out of there. A lot of times they'll come there just a one time because they have a house to sell. Or we have a networking, the meetup group does a networking at Buffalo Wild Wings the second Monday of every month. And there are people looking to buy and sell there. At our annual conference in February, a lot of times people will be coming, or they'll know of somebody who's out of town, or I'll have somebody call because I've been on the board at RPOA, so my name will pop up on the website. I don't know, just that's how you run into them.
So somehow, through your networking, you're in a position where you come across deals like this. What are some of the deals that you've either bought this way through this networking that you do, or passed on to other people who have bought them?
Oh, there have been several single family, or that have just come up like flips. People want to do flips, and I've looked at some, and I'm very conservative through a lot of hard lessons. I'm pretty conservative. People will pay more than what I will. And there are quite a few people, especially in that meetup group, that are looking for those kind of deals.
Well, let's talk about your portfolio. Tell me about some of the rental properties.
Well, on and off through the years, we've had properties, but then we've sold them, and then have done several different things.
What's your philosophy? Are you like to buy them, fix them up, hold them for a little while, then sell them, or do you have some buy and holds as well?
One of my problems is not staying focused. Through my years, I have tried so many different things because I run into different ones, and they will have done this. I developed property, for example, and because somebody I knew had done that and had done very well, and so I wanted to do that. So we sold our rental properties and did some development. I've done some spec houses, which I got my doctorate in because it was just it did not work out. And I have done, single family. I have done some remodeling, and now that I appraise, I have run into people and been very involved in the RPOA. There was a time where I only had one single family house, and that was really part of my mom's, it was the house I grew up in, and was trying to decide what I was going to do, because when I was appraising, I do mostly RPOA member appraisals or investors or estates, but the RPOA member or investor appraisals, everybody that was successful I have done appraisals for have focused on one thing. And they can be all different things, but they stay focused on that one thing. And now once in a while, somebody will get off and do something extra once their portfolio is how they're happy with it. They might try something different, and that was a really good lesson for me. And it's, Kim, if you want, we needed to get back in the game, just because I don't want to work. I will always work, but I don't want to have to work. So
you're trying to get to the point where you have passive income.
Yep, passive income.
And what then is your strategy?
My
for
strategy now, and 3 years ago at the annual conference, we had Anthony Chara, and he talked about multifamily. At that point, we only had one single family. So I did his boot camp and just said, okay, this makes sense to me.
And this was 3 years ago.
This was 3 years ago.
Let's talk about that. What happened then?
So I did his boot camp and just started really following, started searching for properties and starting networking for multifamily. I wanted anything 16 units or more is really what to pay for the whole management and pay for all. That's his recommendation.
So in order to be able to afford a management company, you want to have 16 units or more
in one location.
Okay.
Yeah. I have been really focusing, and interestingly enough, I because I had some tough lessons, I am very conservative now. I'm older. That probably has something to do with it. I just want all my bases covered, and have just had a hard time taking that step to delve into this again. Plus, we own another business that I would spend a lot of hours at, so I wanted to make sure everything was right. It just stayed focused and searched every day for multifamily. I did some phone calls. Anybody that had a lead. I still have some people that I'm working with that are potential deals. The one thing about the land contract deals, they take a long time to put together, because you're dealing directly with the owners. In most cases, there's some emotional ties to this. They've owned it for a long time. They want to sell, but they don't want to sell. Where it probably would be much less time consuming to go through the MLS and just deal all business to business.
Or go through a commercial broker.
Yeah.
So you were specifically looking for land contract type deals.
I really wanted seller financing because it's so much less expensive. You don't have the appraisal process to go through, the banking pricing, because I had looked at financing, and it's expensive to do. Mm-hmm. And I knew to get my feet wet into although I have put in some offers on some other properties and didn't get them. A couple of those were seller finance, and another one was through a commercial. But the cost to close was just so expensive that a lot of your payment. So I really backed off.
It's true. You can spend a lot of money on closing commercial properties, because you have a lot of third-party reports that you have to purchase, and if you have a lawyer, you have legal fees, and I mean it can add up pretty quickly.
And if you have to have environmental stuff, I mean every lender has a little bit different requirement that they do.
Yeah, and they also have escrow. You have to fund escrow accounts as well, including capital improvement accounts.
That's right.
So it's not just the cost; it's the money that you have to have in reserves that you need to bring to closing as well.
And I guess through RPOA and by taking phone calls to answer questions on value and appraiser questions and that kind of thing, I had the sense that there are a lot of our members that are over 70 that are thinking about selling, that the market is good. They're tired, and they just think that it might be time to think about it. But even from the time they think about, I mean, I'm working on another deal right now, and it's been 2 years, and it'll probably be another year before we ever put something together, just because then family has to be involved. If there's children, they want to be involved, which I don't want to come to the table and have a child not happy. I mean, when you're doing this on a private deal, it does remove some of that whole commercial advantage of it's non-emotional. It's all about the numbers.
Right. Yeah.
That's the one disadvantage.
Having a broker in between can really just kind of help simplify things in a lot of ways. It sounds like you're creating relationships with potential sellers and following through on just making sure that it's a win-win situation for everybody.
Right.
So for those who fit that profile that you just mentioned, over 70, own property, might be thinking of getting rid of it at this point, or taking advantage of the market. What's your sweet spot? What are you looking for?
I'm still looking for multifamily. I'd like to stick over, 12. If it's in the area, we 9-unit. I might even consider a 6-unit, depends on, or I would even consider maybe a portfolio, but I want more than just a few properties.
Right. So you're looking for 6.
Yeah, I'm really
plus.
looking for I would really like I'd like another 50. That's what I'm looking for. Whether it would be, 220s and it can be a combination, but
okay. Well,
that's kind of what I'm.
So, and if anyone brings something larger than that to you, then send them my way.
Exactly. And, I'm intrigued by the whole, because Anthony Chara has he does these webinars and they pull these people together. And I'm so intrigued by kind of what you do, Brian. I mean, I have been in fact, looked at some big properties that are very intriguing to me. I have a couple commercial realtors that call me and every once in a while and say, "Hey, Kim, I think I have a good one for you." And
well, we can definitely talk when those come along. So let's talk about what you did find then, because you a year ago you got down to it and you said, "Okay, I'm going to make calls. I'm going to really focus on finding the multi-unit." What did you? Because you did find something.
I did.
Let's talk about that.
I'm trying to think where all the different, because I have 2 or 3 things that have been going on, and the one that actually closed was I got a call to do an appraisal on a property that I really wasn't qualified to do. But I'm always chatty, and I always am interested, besides just answering questions, I'm always interested in where people, how did they get where they are, or what kind of property they have, or if I could help them out, just to give them an idea. And that was kind of the situation they called, and they had 27 units, and actually 29 units. And I didn't realize at that point it was on 3 different properties, but they had this many units. And as I'm qualified to do commercial under $1 million, but I don't have a lot of experience in it, and so I'm always upfront and say to people what my experience is, and they can choose at that point. But those are a lot of times commercial appraisals that have to be done, and that's kind of where this went. And I said, if you're just looking for a cash flow number, I can pull out the form that we use in our appraisals and go over it with you if that would help you. And, that would be great. And so I met with them. I went, and in the back of my mind, and I even said to her, I don't know that I can help you with an appraisal, but I may be able to help you find a buyer, because I network with a lot of people. And in fact, I might be interested. So I'm going to be upfront with you when I come out. Part of it's for me. So I went out, met with them, ran some quick numbers, and of course knew nothing really about the property. I said to them the whole way, this is not in an appraisal capacity. At this point, I'm just giving you how you look at numbers, how people I know in RPOA look at numbers. This is the form I use in an appraisal.
Giving them kind of an independent valuation.
It's just based on the numbers. This is no research, just you're telling me these are what your numbers are. And based upon this, you may be able to, but I've done no site inspections. I have no clue about these properties. At this point, I knew nothing about these properties. And I said, when it was all said and done, I said, I might be interested in your properties, but I can tell you what, you need to go put it on the market, because I would never pay this much, because I'm looking for a better deal. But no ties to me. You don't have any ties to me. And if I can help you broadcast, I'd advise you come to some of the networking things, that kind of thing. So, but we hit it off. I mean, very interesting couple. I enjoyed chatting with them and gave them the information. And then somehow we reconnected in a couple weeks, and they wanted to talk to me and what would I want to offer them if I could. And just one thing led to another, and it took over 6 months to close the deal. And
So you did end up making an offer then.
I made an offer, and it was seller financed, and we had some down payment to do, and Dave Hill, our RPOA attorney, closed the deal for me in his office. And
I've interviewed him on this podcast.
Yes.
What kind of terms did you get on the seller financing? I mean, how did you structure that?
I have each property is separate. There are 3 separate properties. We set up 3 separate LLCs.
Are they next door to each other, or are they in
one
separate
is
locations?
a mile apart. There are 2 in Rockford and 1 in Cadillac.
Okay.
And we have an LLC that manages everything, so that I can run all the bookkeeping and all everything through the management company.
So David helped you set up one LLC, and then is each property in that LLC? Okay.
Each property is a separate LLC.
So each property is a separate LLC, but you have a managing LLC, which you can run all your money through.
Yep.
Okay. And like as far as the land contract, what can you tell me about that? How did you set that up with the sellers?
We actually took the RPOA land contract, and we each worked, because one of the sellers is a realtor. And so we went back and forth what we wanted. We made tweaks to that, and then sent it when everything, close to everything was settled, sent it to David Hill, and he made some changes.
Right. So like term wise, is it a 10-year, 15 year?
2 of them are 15-year payments, and with
you have three separate land
three separate land contracts. 2 of them are 15-year payoff with a 5-year balloon that's renewable if both parties agree.
Were you able to get a good interest rate?
Yeah, I mean, now consider that I have no cost besides I have a small attorney fee. Virtually, when you compare, I had a good faith from a commercial versus this. Mm-hmm. It was so much cheaper. I think I paid 5% on 2 of them and 6% on one of them.
Interest rate wise. And you went to a commercial lender to get an estimate of what it would cost to close through them and what kind of interest rate you would get. And what was it that turned you away from doing the commercial route? Was it the
I didn't want to in
close?
the first place, because I would rather do a land contract. It just is. It's such a. I don't know. I just have always liked land contracts. I feel like I have more control over it. Mm-hmm. It's not. It takes on a commercial property in this situation. It was such a unique property because there are 3 separate properties. They were all old motels, and they're mostly efficiencies. So one property was an old motel, all connected, 9 units. 7 of them are efficiencies in various sizes. They have mini kitchens and 1 room. And then 2 of them are 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartments. And then up the road a mile, there are 8 cabins, 9 units. 1 cabin is a duplex. And those are all a little bit bigger efficiencies. Some of them have 2 rooms. But they're small, all separate little cottages. And then the Cadillac is a 2-bedroom, 1.5-bath cabin, and then 10 little efficiency cabins, again with mini kitchens. And the lender that I talked to, a couple different lenders. One of them, it was going to cost me so much, and he didn't even know if he could finance it because they were such unique properties.
Yeah, they don't quite fit in the box that the banks are looking for.
we'll refinance them for you when you get some history. I can more apt get people to do it then.
So what were they looking for, like a year seasoning?
Yeah, a year, 6 months to a year. Although I knew then, because these have, they've been owned for a long time, and just family tragedies and stuff, deferred maintenance, they needed refurbishing, and I knew this was going to be a project.
So these were this was a turnaround
This
project.
was a turnaround
kind of a
project.
value add. You're buying it at a certain
Yep.
price, but you're going to have to put money into it.
Yep.
How did you budget that then? I mean, going in, you knew what you were paying for it. Did you have a budget then for the money you knew you would have to put into the unit?
I did, and I tried to cash. And so far I've been successful. I figured it in the cash flow of the properties based on, at the time I bought them, they were all full except for one. And I didn't know at the time, a lot of the people I did not want as tenants, that I would be kicking them out.
So you inherited some tenants that
Right.
did not meet your
Right.
your standards.
Right. So, but even with that, I have budget enough, and these are small units, so it's not like refurbishing a whole house. We can do one unit at a time, and it doesn't cost a lot of money to redo them. I don't want to say rehabbing. I'm saying refurbishing. We're not gutting them. We are
You're doing like cosmetic things,
with
paint
new
and-
floor. Some can be paint. Sometimes we have to put different wall. I have some. I'm a trash to treasure kind of person. I take great pride in making something really cool out of inexpensive. I've always been a Habitat restore person, and a salvage. Pitch Wrecking was my favorite store for years. I mean, I can make some inexpensive things look very
So are you
cool.
doing a lot of the work yourself then?
No, I don't do. I get all the materials, and then I have. I inherited a couple maintenance guys that, but I am very closely involved, but I don't do the work.
So you're working with them to
Do stuff. And then I have a licensed contractor who comes. He has another job, but then he moonlights for me. So I'm really fortunate that he's around, and he works every other weekend, or sometimes I'm trying to get 3 units done right now. So he's going to be working every weekend for several weekends, and he comes in and does the big stuff that needs a contractor for. But then I have like the painting and small stuff I have cleaning and painting and handyman. So it's worked out really well.
and you're able to pay for all this out of cash flow.
All
So
cash flow.
all your cash flow is
Yeah.
going right. Currently,
Right
it's
back
going
in.
back right.
And I
right
knew
back
that
in.
this was a 2-year project. I knew it would take me 2 years, and actually we're probably going to get it done quicker than that, just because of there are more tenants I wanted out than what I had initially thought. So I've been fortunate to be able to turn them around, and the quicker I could turn them around, the quicker the whole property turned around. So I really have wanted to do this.
So are you
faster than
seeing
what I
that?
thought.
Are you seeing that progress already?
Huge. So, and that's rewarding. I mean, that's what, it's a lot of work, but it makes it worthwhile.
How many units have you turned so far?
7, 8, 9. 9, and we're in the midst of 2 right now.
Okay, and
So,
out of how many units?
29.
Out of 29, so you're well over a third of the way
Yeah.
there. That's pretty
Yeah.
good in the first year.
And not everyone is going to have to be totally redone. We're going to be doing little things on some of them that, like, there's some electric stuff that has to be done. And maybe I don't have to go in and refurbish, because there are several tenants that I love and that we're going to keep, and they are great tenants. But I want to, and their units aren't too bad, but we're going to do, like, I think when I extend their leases, we'll do anniversary type gifts. Like Mr. Landlord's big on that, and I'll give choices on, maybe I'll redo their flooring or redo if there's some maybe new light fixtures or whatever. Just
Sure.
Paint a room.
Less expensive to do that than to have them move out and have to
Right. I want them to feel, because they're seeing all this stuff going on, and I don't want them to be left out. But in the same token, their units aren't as bad.
Right. So what has been, as you do, well, actually, let me back up. You're managing the properties yourself, right?
I am.
So let's talk about that decision on your part to manage, because you were looking to get into passive income.
Right.
But you're very active in the management, and I can imagine that takes up a lot of your time. What is that experience like?
Yeah, I had managed years ago and said I would never do that again, and I don't ever say never anymore. But when we looked at these properties, or when I looked at these properties, I said to my husband, this is a 2-year project, and it means we're going to have to manage them, because that's the only way I can cash flow all the rehabs and get everything to where we want it to be. This is an intense 2-year project, but it's very rewarding to me, and it's I love to do projects, and it's kind of the best. These are little quick projects, or each room takes us 2 weeks to a month. It depends. Some a little bit more, some a little bit less. Well, I can't do anything less than 2 weeks, but so my short attention span works, because we're on to the next one really before I'm just getting tired of this one, and we've got it rented and we're on to the next one. So it's very rewarding. It's rewarding that we're making a lot of tenants, I like to say residents, very happy, because some that were going to move because they didn't like when their leases were up, they had given me notice and then decided to stay because they were so excited about how nice they turned out.
Yeah, so what is the reaction of your residents? Are most of them pretty happy
thrilled
with the changes?
Yep. Thrilled, except the ones I kicked out. They not have, but it's just how it is.
But the other residents are thrilled because you kicked them out.
Right, exactly.
The other ones out. Yeah. How quickly were you able to identify which residents needed
some
to
immediately?
To go?
I just
talk about that, because as a manager, you're the one kicking them out. So how did you face that? How did you deal with that?
Well, one thing I would suggest to everybody, when they're doing their due diligence, I did not pull criminal history on every single person, because I was, in the files, I know that people aren't supposed to keep all that stuff in their files. And there were a few of the decision reports in there by mistake, because you're not supposed to keep the credit history for long term in people's files. That's all supposed to be destroyed. And the ones I saw were okay. And so I did not pull everybody's criminal history.
Right. Usually that's not part of due diligence, is to go and pull
in fact, I've never had anybody tell me
to
do that.
I mean, you would do that when you're leasing,
right?
But not when you're buying. You assume that those systems have already been in place,
right?
So it sounds like you found out you had some tenants who probably had a criminal history.
Yes, yeah, quite a few actually, and it's interesting because had they kept their mouth shut and been just under the radar and good residents, good tenants, I probably would not have caught on. But no, I mean, they're...
How did you, tell me a story. How did you catch on?
Well, one of them, the first day that we had... Another interesting thing, which I knew was remind me to tell you about collecting rent in person every Friday and every Saturday. So the first time we went to collect rent in person, one of them just comes out and tells his whole story, and that he had a warrant for his arrest right now, and I go from that to the next person, and they're saying, and I don't like it because I think he's a window peeper, and I go to the next person, and I mean, it just was a domino effect on, oh my gosh, what did I just get myself into here?
Was it all kind of stemming from this one person, or did everybody have their story and their problem?
Well, in that one property, I got rid of 3 quite soon. Mm-hmm. And there's probably one more going.
And this is because they just made it apparent right from the start that they were trouble.
They were trouble.
I mean, you went to collect the rent, and they came out and told you there's a warrant for their arrest.
Yeah.
Was that their excuse for not paying you rent?
No, he had his rent money, but he was just telling me all his whole story and what he had done, and that he was waiting for somebody, and that he was going to do this. And I mean, just, it's like I wouldn't. And everybody that drove up, I mean, any prospective tenant that I would have had, anybody that drove their car into that parking lot, because my daughter, the kids were home at Christmas. We bought these before Christmas, and my kids were home, and they wanted to see the properties. And so I don't know who, one of them had met us up there, and this character is right out there didn't even know who they were, and telling him his whole story. And
everybody gets an earful from this guy.
Right.
Huh.
And then the other one.
And what a great story to share with people, too. There's a warrant out for my arrest.
Right.
I'm waiting for a guy. I'm going to buy drugs from him.
And I wish I'm a sexual predator, and I wish I had never done it. It was a mistake I did years ago. I mean, he just told all this stuff, and all about his kids and what he had. And I mean, just anything you'd ever want to know, and stuff that you didn't. And I don't.
So let's talk about that guy. How did you get rid of him? How quickly did you get rid of him?
Well, you know what? This was a little bit overwhelming at this moment in time.
You just bought the property.
I just bought the property.
And you inherited.
And my husband at this point is having fits. You know, I mean, he is just.
What did you get us into?
What did you get us into, Kim? Again, you know?
Because he pictures himself like.
Yeah.
Dragging the guy from his home to a victim or something. So
I said, you know what, Brent? I'll take care of it. Fortunately, I have Emma and Sarah on speed dial. Emma worked at Compass, and now she's at Quest. And Sarah,
Emma Person's our second interview on this podcast.
Yes, and Sarah, who is Pitbull Collections and does all United Properties collections and that kind of thing. And just the breakfast. I mean, I'd go to breakfast and say, okay, you guys, how do I handle this?
Right.
But Emma said, okay, and all these people, I looked at when their leases expired. Fortunately, that guy's expired in 1 month. So I did a notice, that I'm not extending his tenancy. And Emma said, you need to talk to him and tell him that it's coming. So I did. I talked to him. And I'm not a fearful person at all, and I never feared for my life with this guy, but I was very uneasy, especially the longer he was there, and the more of the people that were around him, I was uneasy, and I was uneasy for all the rest of the people that were living there.
So he was causing problems for everybody.
Yeah. And I told him, a corporation owns this, and we are rehabbing these, and we're not extending leases as we rehab them. And we have new screening policies, and so you're going to be getting a notice to quit in the mail. And 30 days, you have 30 days. And of course he's upset because he didn't know where he was going to live, and just all that kind of stuff. And I wanted to avoid court. And so as it progressed, and he's trying to I gave him numbers of who he could call that would help him. And he never had time to call them. And it just kept approaching. And I was trying, because I knew I go to court, I don't know how I'm going to collect any money from this guy. So I said to him, I will give you your deposit back. And because, of course, immediately he quits paying me.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I will give you your deposit back if you get all your stuff out of your place and you're out by whatever that 30-day was. And I don't have to take you to court.
Basically paying them to go away.
I'm paying them to go away. Mm-hmm. But I said, if I have to file papers in court, I can't do that because now it's going to add up. So, and I kept saying to him, are you going to be out? Are you, because I don't want you to have to, you're going to have an eviction on your record and you already have a hard time finding a place to live. And in the meantime, there was an old man who lived in another one of my units. And I find out this guy the old man had a stroke, and this guy who I'm evicting is befriending him and trying to get guardianship, his girlfriend to get guardianship. And it appears that they are doing some unethical things there, which I have no control of.
You get guardianship to get control over this guy's money?
Yeah.
Or to move in with him. And,
both.
And
I had said to him, you cannot move. You have to be off this property and you can never come back. So, and I had no way to get a hold of any of his family, the guy who he was trying to take advantage of, the family. So all this is going on too. Unfortunately, like I said, I have my people at RPOA that I can call and say, what can I do? Because I felt horrible.
Oh, so you're like a social worker at this point.
Yeah, actually. So finally, I did have to file papers, but he did get out like 2 days after I filed, so I could cancel him. I gave him I did give him some of his money. I did give him a little bit of cash and just to get him out. Mm-hmm. And so that was the first one that we redid. And
but you finally got rid of him.
We got rid of him. In fact, everybody I've gotten rid of has ended up going without having to go to court. I've come close, but in almost all cases, I've offered them cash. Mm-hmm. But it also,
which is basically their security deposit back, is that
or $100,
$100. And most of them have taken you up on that, and
yeah. Uh-huh. And some just they don't want to, because I will report on the tenant history website. I will. They have something in court that's not good, and they're trying to find another place. And in this market, trying to find a place to rent is tough. Yeah. And so that has helped a lot. So, but what a lesson.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had a number of tenants like that, huh?
Yeah, I did.
Wow. And you're still working through some of them.
Yep. I probably have one more that's been on the bubble. I just haven't. I was having a hard time deciding, and I think I'm just going to do it. Mm-hmm. Because it's going to be the difference of one whole property with great tenants,
right?
Versus
how are you with delinquencies? And when I say delinquencies, I mean people who are paying on time and.
For the first time last week, I had only one person that was late, and the outstanding ones are all the people that are gone now that I will have to file small claims and collect. I'll put Sarah on it. I just said that to her today. I'm going to file my small claims, and then I'm going to turn these over so you can get at least tax garnishments or something.
Right. So Pitbull Collections will go after the ones who are no longer living there, right, but who still owe you money.
Yep.
Now, are you collecting rent weekly or monthly?
We turned within a month. We turned everything over to auto pay, either through an online. I have a rental portal that I use, or I do ACH, and. For the ones in Rockford because some of these people don't have bank accounts, I do let them make a direct deposit into our account, and I have it worked out with United Bank, and they can just go
bring
to
their
the
money
Rockford
directly to United
branch,
Bank,
and they will do that.
Okay. Now, are they on a monthly payment system?
Well, I would say half of mine. They were all weekly, except for a couple.
Mm-hmm.
At least half now have switched over to monthly.
Now, you don't normally see rentals that are weekly unless it's more of a transient type place where people are coming and going and maybe not living there for a full year. So what's different about these properties that?
Well, they weren't those were on a 3 month lease. Mine are all on year leases now.
Okay, so you've moved everyone from a 3 month lease to a
all my
to a
new
year
people
lease.
are on year leases. I have not extended anybody's yet. I wanted to, before I extended anybody's leases from that are current residents, I wanted to give it 6 to 9 months to make sure that, because it's easy to just not extend the lease, to
Sure.
get rid of somebody. So I wanted to get a feel for that. And when I extend, they'll all be for year leases. And the weekly is just a convenience thing, and I charge a premium for it.
Mm-hmm.
And but some people just they get paid weekly and they just want to make a weekly payment.
Okay.
And the previous owners had done almost like I said, almost everybody was on a weekly, and they went in person and collected cash.
So they were going door to door to collect cash, and now you've got it set. At the beginning, it sounds like you were going door to door, but now you've got it set up.
We did the
automatic.
first month, and within 2 weeks. Number one, what an inconvenience what an inconvenience for all the residents. You're waking them up
Yeah.
on Saturday morning, or they have to be there, or they couldn't make it. It's just a time consumer.
Right.
Plus, how unsafe dealing all in cash. People they're leaving cash on their doorknob, they're leaving cash in their refrigerator. If they can't be there, I mean, it's just not a safe practice.
No.
By any means.
Yeah.
And so immediately I said, we're not
Well, it's not
doing
safe
this.
for you to be collecting it
No.
either, because then you're walking around with cash in your pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
what are some other systems that you brought to the facility that have made a difference?
Fair housing, that we follow the fair housing guidelines to a T, and have a screening policy, and we do all the applications online. I have a Google Voice set up with our own private number for next door properties, and I do a lot with text, and I do a lot with email. So they can take pictures of their documents and email them to me, and I do pre-screening stuff. We do everything online. They do their application fee online.
Now, is that through the RPOA, or is that a
No,
separate
it's a
system?
separate. I use Buildium. There's a lot of them out there. We're just a small, so I used a small one. There's some real big systems that were just more than what I needed. And that one is good for what we need. It has a lot of, everything's in one place. I can look at a minute the properties, who my tenants are, when their lease expires, pretty
Okay.
much anything.
So it sounds like you've put a lot of systems in place then from the management perspective, where you don't have to do nearly as much as you were doing.
No, we
That's
don't
good.
do everything. Any receipts are either the bank gives them, or it's automatically emailed them, or everybody has access to their own account. They can look on their portal in the program and see what their statement is every minute, at any point in time. They can pay that way if they choose. It's a much better, I have a lot of times I will have, I gather all my material, or all the application and their W-2s and their income verification and all that stuff ahead of time. Then when we screen them, have a process that we go through, and it's yay or nay based on the process. And I do have exceptions that if they have co-signers or that kind of thing. So yeah, it's I'm trying to do a system for every single thing. And a lot of that I got from that, that boot camp. I mean, they had given me a lot of stuff, plus the RPOA, all the classes that we offer. I'm the chairperson right now of the education committee, and I like to sit in on all the classes. And such good classes. I mean, that just helps a lot.
Yeah, you can get a lot of great educational material through the RPOA that can really help anybody in a situation like you just went through.
Yes.
What are you spending the majority of your time on now in regards to this property?
The rehabs are taking a lot of time, and then just it's tough, the whole getting my whole marketing and trying to narrow down, especially the Cadillac property. I'm having a hard time getting qualified residents. And
now Rockford is just about 10 minutes north of Grand Rapids. Where is Cadillac?
Cadillac is an hour north of Rockford.
Okay, so you've got a little ways to go.
An hour, we're from our house. We're an hour and a half away. So,
okay. And why is it more difficult in Cadillac to find good tenants?
I think employment's tougher up there. It's quite a seasonal area. I think the poverty rate is higher. I have applicants. I've been working with. There are several housing specialists up there that work trying to place. There's a homeless veterans person and homeless domestic violence, just those kind of. And I've been trying to work with some of those to try to get a good fit. But you have to have, we pay all the utilities. You have to have twice your rent and income to qualify. I've lowered it to that, and that's a tough thing. And then we don't allow.
Well, even that's you've lowered that threshold quite a bit, because a lot of places, they want to see a third of your rent and income, but you're saying a half of your rent and income, and that's and you're still having trouble finding people up there. Wow. Are the organizations that you'd mentioned, the homeless veterans or Section 8 or whatever, are they helping you find tenants?
Well, they are, but they still, a lot of them have, their rent is covered and loosely guaranteed, but they don't make much more than that. Mm-hmm. And who's going to be the first person not paid?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If they run into any kind of a problem. So I'm trying to figure that out.
So that's the challenge you have
right
now.
That's my challenge.
Is filling the vacancies in Cadillac, huh?
Yep.
With good tenants.
Yeah.
Good qualifying tenants.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you think it's about another year that you have to really whip these into shape?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Maybe a little. Yeah, I'd say by the end of 2017, that was my goal, is to be totally getting them so that they're doing well. Everybody's on leases and they're not all coming due at the same time, nor are they coming due at Christmas. And everybody's paying, everybody qualifies, they're happy.
Right.
The places are nice places to live, even though they're small. I want them to be nice.
What about strategies to get your expenses down? What are you doing there?
Interesting. Already I put video cameras in the unit that had the most problems. And
inside the unit or
no,
or
outside.
Like outside?
Mm-hmm. I have 3 video cameras set up.
Oh, okay, so you can see who's coming and going.
So I can see what's going on. And that has really helped a sense of security for the residents there, because the property did have a stigma, come to find out. Certain ones you talk to that you find out later. And that has really helped. And I've had people just really depend on that. And so I had to put internet in. And so now I've offered internet to my residents as an add-on. Mm-hmm. And it's very cheap for them for what they would have to pay, but it adds an extra $30 a month for income
that's nice.
From everybody. There's a garage up there at each of the properties that at some point when I need to get all the insides of the units taken care of, and then I will tackle. I'm not a big fan of garages because they just end up filling with junk. So I think we're going to do just simple, create a storage unit a closet for each person in the garage, and if they choose, they can rent that as an added on. So these are add-ons. I offered cable in one location that as an add-on.
Okay.
I am going to be doing, I'm trying to figure out how to manage the utilities and cut some costs in utilities without putting huge amounts of money into the property.
Because you're paying the utilities.
I'm
for
paying the utilities
residents.
in most cases. Of the 29 units, 11 of them pay gas.
A lot of people like to avoid having a situation where they're paying the utilities for the residents, but I have plenty of those types of properties, and it does give you an opportunity to install more energy efficient mechanicals.
Yes.
And other ways to conserve energy as well that can really help your bottom line. What's the heat like? Is it hot water boiler heat
No,
in the units?
those are all gas. Well,
Gas?
actually, the apartments, the actual 2-bedroom, the 3 units that are 2 bedrooms, all have fairly new furnaces. They're energy efficient, probably not
So
the
individual
most.
furnaces for the
Yes,
apartments? Are those the
those
ones that
each
are
do.
split?
And
Or-
those are split.
those are
the
split,
gas
yeah.
are split. The rest of them have all the kind of the motel type wall heaters.
Oh, kind of wall heater, wall AC?
Yeah, but there's no
combined?
AC.
No AC, okay.
None of them have AC. And I've had, Ryan has been checking out a lot of them. He checks everyone out before we turn it, Ryan from Indoor Climate Solutions. And then we've had to replace a couple of them.
Okay, well, so yeah, I've had Harvey on the show
Yep,
to talk
yep.
about heating and air conditioning.
Yes.
What do they recommend? Are those wall units the best way to go, or is there
It's
a way
about to make it. I looked into baseboard electric heat, and that's just so expensive
to install or to operate?
To operate, they're cheap to install compared to the other ones, but it's just cost prohibitive. We do have my energy bills, considering these are old places, are not bad. But we instilled, there's a fine if they leave their screen doors open during the winter. Because
sure,
this
over
winter, I'd walk up and their main door would be open and the screen door would be standing there, and I'm paying the heat bill. On all the new leases, there's a $50 fine if we see that the doors are open.
Wow, okay. Yeah, well, yeah, you see that quite often in apartments where you're paying the heat or the electric or the gas. People, they don't care. I mean, they'll crank up the heat and open all the windows and the doors.
Yep.
It's wonderful.
Yep.
Yeah, so have you had to find anybody?
I haven't, but I didn't install it till later on. I did it in the last couple months. So, and I will go through and tell. In fact, I'm tempted. I need to talk to Ryan and Harvey about there is something we can do with the thermostats so that they don't go any higher based on outside temperature or something. And
Yeah,
I'm going to look at that.
They've installed it on some of my properties, a Techmar device that I hate to describe it because I always get it wrong, but it basically it checks the temperature outside, and if the temperature's not above a certain or below a certain temperature, the heat just won't kick on.
Yeah.
So it saves money.
Yes.
Going back to the security cameras that you installed, did you ever see anything interesting on those?
Yeah, actually, I have. And at this point, it's kind of, we don't have it to a science on watching them. We're just looking at a different program to watch them.
Can you watch them remotely?
I can. They're set up so I can open them
so
on.
We could pull it up right now and look at it, huh?
Yep.
See what your tenants are up to.
I mean, there's been a couple things. We have a neighbor that we have an easement. One of the driveways goes in front of their house, and I am I'm grateful because she keeps an eye on things, but she can be a little bit dramatic at times, and I've been able to look on the camera and see, was it as big a deal as what she had said, what was going on?
Like, what is she saying is happening?
Oh, that my tenants are just ripping through her driveway in the middle of the night and causing problems and waking up her dogs and stuff like that.
And have you determined if that's the case?
No, I have not seen that. Maybe one time out of the many times.
Yeah.
I found people dumping trash.
Oh, okay.
And I found one of the tenants who was on the bubble evidently collecting money so people could dump trash.
Oh, so people were paying him to come in. We had a tenant at one of our larger properties who worked for a trash collection company, and he told them, "Hey, it's okay. Why don't you just come dump your stuff at where I live?" So our trash bins were getting filled with other people's trash. And our residents didn't have anywhere to put their trash. And then we had security cameras as well. And we could, sure enough, caught him in the act.
Yeah, I think things are calmer there than what, for sure. And I really installed them because one of the people I was going to evict, or the couple that I was going to evict, were high drama. I mean, they texted me about everything. I had so many texts in the 2 months that they lived there. It was unbelievable. And they were going to sue me, and they were going to, it was, and I was very concerned about, and he was also a felon. And I was also concerned about what they would do to damage the property when I gave them their eviction notice. Fortunately, they were having a fit. We were remodeling one of the units, and Joe, who comes on the weekends and works, was like 3 doors down working, and these people worked nights, and they wanted everybody to be quiet all the time. And so I tried to warn them when he was going to be there, and that, he was going to make noise. Well, one day I was up there, and they were just having a fit, and I said, "You know what? You guys don't seem very happy here. I would let you out of your lease if you wanted to find someplace different. I won't hold you to that lease." And she said, "Well, we just might do that." And I said, "Truly, I'll give you your deposit back, and I'll let you out of your lease with no additional charges." I had planned, like, in 2 weeks, that they were going to get their notice because their lease was expiring in 1 month. So she kept saying something to the fact that they might take me up on it. And then they had maybe found something. And then I said, "You know what? If you guys..." And one day she was just off the wall, upset. And I said, "You've been going and sleeping at your mother-in-law's apartment or mother-in-law's house. If you want to move out and go there, I'll give you your deposit check today." And I don't know how it all came about. I think they ended up qualifying for a trailer. They got their income tax return back, but it all worked out perfectly. The day that I was going to give them their eviction notice, they moved out. I gave them their full deposit back. I didn't care at this point what.
You just wanted to get rid of the headache
and that
they were
was
causing.
Wonderful. And that was a big. That whole and I had the cameras installed for them particularly
because they were complaining about things that may or may not have been happening.
She hit my parking lot pole, and my neighbor fortunately saw that she was the one that did it, and she called and had to fit because they had no light. Because the snowplow guy had hit the parking lot pole when in fact the parking lot light, she was the one who had done it, and and the neighbor had pictures, which was very fortunate. But I didn't even go after them. I just wanted them out. She had supposedly slipped on the ice and hurt herself, and so she was threatening to
sue you for a slip and fall.
Yeah. So
did you get a lawyer involved in that pretty quickly, or?
It never happened.
Dodged that bullet.
She never. I would have 20, 25, 30 texts a night from them.
Wow.
So, and I don't. That's another thing. Somebody a long time, I don't know who it was, at one of our speakers or what, said keep office hours and don't take calls. Work 9 to 5 and don't, as tough as it is, don't take calls after 5 because you will be a slave to that. And they will. Jim Loftus is a big proponent that don't call me after 5.
Yeah.
And I have really stuck to that.
Yeah, if it's an emergency, call.
Yes.
Call the police.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I say.
Don't call. Yeah, don't call me.
Yeah.
What lessons have you learned from buying this property that you would like to share with our listeners?
Well, there's probably lots. And I said, if I would have had time, I should have been keeping a blog just for myself and just for other people they could either learn or laugh with me. But I think one of the things I said was, pull criminal history. And it depends on the property and where the location is, but I don't think that hurts just to get an idea of what you're walking into.
You mean when you're screening your tenants or when you're buying a property?
When you're buying a property, I would do that again now, just from what I learned. And I treat all our residents I want them to have nice places. The ones that are there, I want to keep. And I want everybody to have a great place to live. Even though they're efficiency apartments, I want them to be happy with what they have. And that is rewarding in itself, the people who have appreciated that and that have seen the turnaround and come out and say, we really appreciate that you're here, and that kind of makes it worthwhile. So we're providing housing on terms that they can live with inexpensively. I mean, we're probably one of the cheapest. If you go on Craigslist, we come up as some of the cheapest places to live because they're small efficiencies, but they're still not. The tiny house movement has done me great favors, because we try to pattern the interiors after some tiny houses. I don't have the money to do all the cool storage things that I would love to do, but that has helped because it's a acceptable thing to have tiny houses, and that's how
people like the idea of economizing, downsizing.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So that has been a fortunate thing, and I think take advantage. I'm such a big proponent of networking. I cannot say it enough. And I'm not saying networking just to get deals or networking to get business. I'm saying networking because those relationships that you build, if I have any kind of a question, I can bring it up. I can call somebody. I can bring it up at breakfast and say, hey, you guys, am I nuts for thinking this? Or how should I handle this? And it's so nice to have 3 or 4 opinions on, you shouldn't tolerate that, or, we'll try to work with them. It's okay. Or just, it's so nice to get more perspective. Years ago when I did this, I did it on my own, and we can always learn from all our mistakes for sure. But there are so many people that are so willing to help and just give their advice or their opinions that have been through it, that it's a great thing. And I couldn't have done this without all my connections with RPOA.
I want to thank you for taking the time to talk about your experience with land contracts. I think that's a very useful topic for a lot of listeners. And also just talking about the investments you've made, especially this latest one, which sounds like a lot of fun.
It is. At some point, I'll be able to say it was a lot of fun, but no, I have enjoyed it. It's certainly a great challenge.
You've been listening to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association. You can find out more at rpoaonline.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review.